Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Thursday, July 25th edition of the MMAOB Daily podcast. I'm your host, as always, Adam Martin, taking you guys through the latest in the world of mixed martial arts. As always, guys, follow me on Twitter at MMADamMartin. This podcast is available at MMAOddsbreaker.com and on our YouTube channel at MMAOddsbreaker. Please like, share, and subscribe. Also, check me out at bjpen.com, MMARings.net as well. I actually left, or I'll be leaving MMAnews.com. I'm going to be taking on a bigger role at bjpen.com. So I want to tell Michael there at MMA News, thank you for the opportunity, Michael. I appreciate it. And it was a great, I think, 2 years I was there. So I appreciate the opportunity. But, a lot of changes in my personal life, but it's all good. Everything's for the best. And I wish those guys the best. But, I'm very focused on MMAOddsbreaker.com and bjpen.com right now. So just really focusing on those two ventures in particular. And, of course, this podcast. You guys know I love doing it. So pretty jam-packed show today, guys. I'll be breaking down PFL. That card is tonight, PFL 2019, Week 5, and also some fight announcements to talk about. So let's get right into it. First and foremost, PFL, the odds dropped yesterday. You can check out my opening odds reactions at MMAOddsbreaker.com, as always. So check that out for the opening odds, but I'll just get right into the fights using the current odds. First up, I'll go from the top to the bottom, actually. Main event of the evening, Chris Wade takes on Ahmed Aliev. I mean, technically it's the main event, but really all these fights being the same. They're all lightweight tournament bouts and featherweight tournament bouts on this card. So Chris Wade takes on Ahmed Aliev. Chris Wade, 15-5 record, 18-4 record for Aliev. Aliev is currently a minus 240 favorite with Chris Wade at plus 180. And these odds look about right to me. Aliev is a stud. The guy is on a nice win streak here. He's on an 8-fight win streak. And look at some of the wins he has. Diego Brandao, Efrain Escudero, Ivan George. These are former UFC fighters. And in his PFL debut, he finished Carlos Silva. So the guy's pretty good, I think. Takes on here Chris Wade, who obviously is a more well-known fighter. 3-2 record in PFL. His only two losses are to Nathan Schulte, and we'll talk about him in a second. But Schulte is a great fighter. So to me, those aren't bad losses. And he just picked up a win over Nate Andrews, also over Robert Watley and Yuki Kawana. So we know how good Chris Wade is with the grappling, but he doesn't have that dynamic finishing ability, especially as far as the striking goes, that Aliev has. Aliev can finish the guys on the feet. He can finish guys on the ground. I think Aliev wins this fight. The guy's just, to me, a more well-rounded fighter with more finishing potential. So give me Aliev here. I'm not surprised he's a big favorite here, even though I do think that Chris Wade's a decent fighter. I just think Aliev is a better fighter. He also has a couple more wins. If you look at it earlier in his career, like he beats Zubair Tukhugov as well. So that's a pretty good win too. The guy has a lot of experience. And you know what? I think he's a real contender to win this $1 million for this tournament. Next up, Lance Palmer takes on Luis Rafael Laurentino. This is a featherweight bout, co-main event, but again, these are all featherweight tournament bouts. Currently, Lance the Party Palmer minus 400, Luis Rafael Laurentino plus 310. I mean, obviously, Palmer's going to be the favorite here. The guy's a stud, 18-3 record. Like I said, he's a beast. He's on a 7-fight win streak. He's 7-0 in PFL, and if you add WSOF, he's got what 11 and 3 record in WSOF/PFL. So that's an amazing record, really. And he's got great wins too, like Andre Harrison, Steven Siler twice, who he beat in the finals last year. And this season he beat Alex Gilpin in the first round, which was it was his best performance. He didn't finish the fight, but he still got the win. So good for him. Now he takes on Laurentino here, 34-1 record. I mean, this guy's record's incredible. 26 years old. Now, it's a padded record. If you look at his resume, a lot of the guys he's fought don't even have like records. They're like literally 0-0 fighters. But in his PFL debut, he knocked out Jeremy Kennedy with a head kick in the first round at 23 seconds in the first round. And that was a really big upset. And I even said at that point, like, maybe, this guy has some value. At that point, I hadn't really seen him fight enough to know. But after seeing that, I don't think you can count this guy out. I mean, yes, Lance Palmer's probably going to win this fight. Would I lay minus 400 on Lance? I don't know. I don't think so. I think it's probably a dog or pass situation at this point. This guy does have finishing ability. We saw that against Jeremy Kennedy, who's a pretty good fighter. Not a great fighter, but a pretty good fighter. A former UFC fighter. That is not a bad win by any means. It's a good win. So I think it's a dog or pass situation. This guy could, if he keeps the fight standing, he could finish Palmer. Odds are Palmer probably going to get the takedown and grind out a decision. I think that's the most likely way this fight ends. But I wouldn't lay minus 400 on it personally. So I think it's a dog or pass situation. Pick is Palmer, but I'd rather put money on Laurentino at plus 310 and have some action on the dog. Next up, another lightweight bout. Nate Andrews takes on Rasheed Mamedov. Rasheed Mamedov currently minus 625. Nate Andrews plus 430. let's look at the records here for a second. Rasheed, sorry about that. Rasheed 23-3-1. Nate Andrews 15-2. Rasheed Mamedov, we know he was in the UFC. Another guy that he didn't have that exciting style that I think Dana White likes, and they let him go. But he had good wins in the UFC, like Anthony Rocco Martin, Gilbert Burns, Bobby Green. These are good wins. He had the one loss to Darius. That's it. He was a really good fighter in the UFC, quality fighter. Since coming to PFL, he's 3-1-1. Just beat Loic Radzhabov in the first round back in May, and I'll talk about him in a second. Only lost to Schulte last year in the finals. I did pick Schulte in that fight. He was a big favorite, big underdog actually, and I picked him to win that fight. So I've been pretty good with picking Rasheed's fights. I picked him, I think, in the other fights as well. So the guy definitely is a quality fighter, but again, he doesn't have that dynamic finishing ability, which I think does limit him against upper echelon guys. Takes on Nate Andrews here, who had his long win streak snapped against Chris Wade. He had some decent wins, I guess, on the regional scene. Julian Lane, for instance, that was one of his notable wins. The guy that said just bang, bro. A couple other guys in CES. So he had some decent experience, but the loss to Wade, I think, exposed him a little bit with the wrestling, the takedown defense. Just didn't get the job done. Rasheed's not as good of a wrestler as Wade, obviously, but he's definitely a really good fighter at outpointing guys. Just good at outpointing guys. He is 35, but Nate Andrews is also 35. So the age is the same in this fight. I like Rasheed, obviously, like everyone else does. My 625 is a value there. Probably not, but I think he's going to win this fight. I think he wins pretty easily. I think he probably wins 30-27. So that'd be my prediction for that fight. Next up, we have what else? I'm looking at Tapology here, by the way, guys. So the bout order might be a little bit different. What fight is this? Alex Gilpin against Freddie A Son. Currently, we have Alex Gilpin at -165, A Son +135. That's a 145-pound bout. Alex Gilpin 12-2, A Son 10-1. So Gilpin, he had that loss to Lance Palmer in his PFL debut, which snapped a 7-fight win streak. He was on the Contender Series last season and actually picked up a win by submission and didn't get signed, which is weird because if you look at this season, they're signing everyone that gets a finish on that show. So this guy kind of got screwed in a way, didn't get the contract, but he's in PFL now. It's a good spot for him, taking on, like I mentioned, Freddie A Son. Freddie A Son, 37 years old, so he's a little bit older fighter, but man, he's definitely got a good record here, 10-1. Got some good wins here, Cody Bollinger, JZ Cavalcante, but he hasn't fought in 3 years since Titan FC 40, so that definitely is not a good sign. I don't know. I mean, yeah, the layoff is not good, but I do think Sunsell is the better fighter, so I think probably, again, dogger pass situation, but again, you're putting money on a guy that hasn't fought since 2016. That's a long time ago. You guys know I don't like betting on fighters that are coming off long layoffs. In this situation, I have to pick him because I think he is a better fighter. So I'll take Sunsell to win this fight by decision, but I mean, it is kind of risky because of the long layoff. Next up, we have a featherweight bout between Steven Sadler and Jeremy Kennedy. I like this fight a lot, actually. Currently, Jeremy Kennedy's -300, Steven Sadler's +240. Jeremy Kennedy actually opened as a smaller favorite here at -180, so he's been steamed up quite a bit. Steven Sadler, 13-19-1 record. Jeremy Kennedy, 13-2 record. So let's talk about these guys. Jeremy Kennedy, former UFC fighter, 26 years old, young guy still. Did not have the UFC career I think a lot of us wanted him to have. 3-1 record in the UFC. He beat Alex Ricci, Ronnie Jason, and Kyle Bokniak, but then lost to Alexander Volkanovski and was released. First off, he was released because his contract finished. He had 4 fights, and it was 4 fights. But the other thing was his wins weren't exciting. He grinded his wins out. Since then, though, he had 2 wins by knockout in Brave, which was good. And PFL signed him, and he got knocked by Tino in a big upset. So he's got a lot to prove in this fight, obviously. Taking on Steven Sadler here, who really was, in many ways, one of the surprises of last year's tournament. 32 years old here, Steven Sadler is 3-3 in PFL total. He had the 2 wins over Alexander de Almeida and also Magomed Israzov, which was a massive, massive upset last summer. He actually had 2 huge upsets. So Steven Sadler is a guy that's been counted out time and time again. Former UFC fighter, of course. He only had, what was his record? UFC 5-4, something like that. I think it's 5-4. So to me, actually, I don't think he was not UFC caliber. They just at that point needed to cut guys. I think he is like a bottom tier guy in the UFC featherweight division, but Kennedy is the same way. So I don't know. I wouldn't bet -300 in Kennedy, not after the way he got KO'd in his last fight. But at the same time, Sadler's coming off 2 straight losses and a draw as well. So he hasn't won a fight in almost a year now. I do think Sadler's underrated, and like his whole career has been underrated. Just doesn't look like that kind of guy that can finish people, but he is a devastating finisher at times. And I wouldn't lay minus 300 against him. So to me, it's another dogger pass situation. I'd rather go with Steven Siler plus 240 here. Not 100% confident that hits by any means, but I wouldn't lay minus 300 on Kennedy after seeing him get finished in his last fight, especially because Siler's a guy that's been known to surprise at times. Next up, Nathan Schulte against Jesse Ronson, 155-pound fight. This fight does not have odds currently. I'm expecting some odds to hopefully come out today. The reason they don't have odds is because this fight was pretty much booked on like 24 hours notice. Ramsey Nijem and Carlos Silva were both scratching the card at the last minute, and PFL booked this fight instead. So Schulte against Ronson. Nathan Schulte was definitely surprised of last year's tournament in the lightweight division, especially went 5-0-1. He beat Rasheed Mamedov in the finals. Also beat Chris Wade twice. Jason High had a draw with Johnny Case, and then in his last fight beat Kang in the first round by submission. So Nathan Schulte is a beast, and people don't realize how good this guy is, but he is a fantastic fighter. American top team trained, 27 years old. The guy's a stud. I am a really, really high on Nathan Schulte. I think he's really good. Taking on Jesse Ronson here, the body snatcher, 33 years old, former UFC fighter. This guy had the worst luck in the UFC. 3 straight split decision losses to Pereira, Trinaldo, and Lee, and was cut. That's brutal. That is a tough run. I know how good he is because I've seen him fight in person many times in Score Fighting Series. I know how good this guy is at times. He can be one of the best lightweights in the world, but just really inconsistent. He has looked better as of late, though. 5 straight wins. He, of course, was supposed to fight Diego Ferreira in the UFC last year at UFC, I think, what was that? That was the Holloway card. Yeah, UFC 231, Holloway Ortega. Missed weight, and the UFC cut him. But since then, obviously he's been getting his weight in check. He may wait for this fight. He's going to be taking on Schulte. We don't have odds yet, so I can't 100% say for sure which way I'm leaning. I have to pick Schulte, though, just based on how good he's looked. The guy just knows how to win fights. But if Ronson's a huge underdog, I mean, maybe it could be worth a shot. I'm not 100% sure what the odds are going to be. We don't know yet. So pick is Schulte, but as far as that goes, I can't give a recommendation by any means because I don't have odds for it. Next up, featherweight bout, Andre Harrison against Mamedov Khaybulaev. This is an interesting fight for sure. Harrison currently minus 125, Khaybulaev minus 105. So the fight opened as a pick'em, very close odds, of course. And I think for good reason. Okay, first off, Andre Harrison is a stud, and this guy should be in the UFC, but again, you talk about boring fighting styles. I mean, he's got one, let's be honest here. 31 years old, and he only goes to decision. He has 1 win in the last 3 years by stoppage. And looking at his career, he has, 3, 4, 5 wins out of his 21 by stoppage. So he's a decision machine, but, man, he wins fights like Steven Siler, Nizrino Malajri, Alexander Popo Bezerra, and also Lance Palmer as well back in WSOF. In his last fight, he beat Peter Pedis to bounce back from the loss to Palmer in the last season's tournament. So guy can grind out fights. Khaybulaev is his opponent here, 14-0, 20 years old. They call him the killer, and for good reason, man. I mean, this guy, he can knock you out. He was from one championship. He Herbert Burns there, Gilbert's brother. And since then, picked up 2 straight wins, including a brutal, vicious, nasty knockout over Damon Jackson with a flying knee in like 10 seconds. That was incredible. This guy can finish fights. I like that about him. Listen, Andre Harrison's a great fighter, and he should have been in the UFC before, and the guy's got great wrestling. I kind of lean towards Khaybulaev, though, because I think that dynamic finishing ability, again, can give this guy problems. And I think he does have the ability to stop the takedowns. We'll see. I mean, I don't know 100% how the fight's going to play out, like none of us do, but if he can stop the takedowns and keep this fight standing, he'll win because his striking is better than Harrison's, and he can knock you out. So my pick's Khaybulaev. I think he wins this fight, but it's too risky for me to bet on because of Harrison's wrestling ability. So I wouldn't bet on this one personally, but I am going to pick Khaybulaev because I think he can actually knock this guy out or possibly win the decision just by outstriking him. Next up, we have another lightweight bout between Islam Mamedov and Kang Bao, and this one has oh man, check out the odds for this one, guys. Minus 3750 for Mamedov, plus 1500 for Kang Bao. I mean, that is just sick odds. I mean, like, this guy's gonna win. Let's be honest here. 29 years old, and he hasn't lost since what? Against Alexander Tiger Sarnovsky back in 2009. So he hasn't lost in 10 years. Some of his wins are pretty good. Like George Pantino, Nathan Schulte by armbar, Thiago Tavares, and last fight, Ulis Urin. But he won a split decision against that guy. So why is he minus 3750? That's insane. That's like, these are like record-setting odds. Taking on Bao here, 13-8 record. They call this dude the microwave, which is hilarious. His record obviously is not good. He's lost 2 straight fights. I don't know why he's in PFL. I don't really know exactly why they signed him. He has no quality wins in his career. I definitely think this guy's going to get – well, actually, he beat Ken Song, so I guess that's a decent win because that guy is in the UFC now, so that's the one notable win. But overall, just a lot of losses and just a lot of inconsistencies. Mamedov will probably win this fight. Like, I'm pretty sure he will, but man, 37.50, no way the hell. Don't bet on this fight, guys. It's not worth it because this dude, just imagine this guy, he gets hurt or like just gets fluke knocked out. It could happen. You never know, right? It's MMA. I never bet on big favorites like this. I would never recommend betting on big favorites like this. Give me Mamedov. He probably finishes this fight, but there's no way in hell I'd lay minus 37.50. And anyone who does is crazy because that's just dumb. Minus 37.50. Don't bet on that fight, guys. Next up, featherweight bout, Alexander D. Almeida against Peter Pedis. Almeida minus 215, Pedis plus 170. Almeida 20-9 record, Pedis 8-5. Almeida, definitely a good fighter, 30 years old. He's had some success in PFL. He beat Lance Palmer back in WSOF. So I guess not technically PFL, but still WSOF. That was a good win for him. He also has a couple other wins here, but it's like Tujer, Juabaki, and also Sal Almeida. So it's some okay wins. But he's lost a couple times too against Palmer, Steven Rodriguez, and twice against Steven Seiler. So he's been a little inconsistent, but definitely at times he can look really good. Taking on Pedis here, 8-5 record. Pedis had a tough draw, of course, against Andre Harrison. And again, not really known for any notable wins. He does have, I guess, Jonathan Pierce. That's an okay win. That guy from the Contender Series. That's an okay win for sure. But he also lost to Julio Arce on the Contender Series. So he had his chance on the Contender Series. I wouldn't say blew it because Arce's a beast, but still lost. Since then, definitely has looked a little better, I guess, with a 3-2 record. But the loss to Harrison, I think, exposed this guy. I got to go with Almeida. I think you could probably grind this fight out. I mean, minus 215, it's a little high, I think, just based on how inconsistent he is. And he has been upset a few times as a big favorite, so definitely be careful. But I think Almeida definitely wins this fight. He probably grinds it out. Last fight to talk about here, lightweight bout between Loic Radzhabov and Yields Uran. Radzhabov 11-1, Uran 16-5 record. And as far as odds go, we have Radzhabov minus 180, Uran plus 150. This guy, Radzhabov, is pretty good. They call him Jaguar Paw, 28 years old. He lost to Rasheed Magomedov, but that's not a bad loss. Before that, he had a lot of wins in a row, like 10 wins in a row or something, like 11 wins in a row, I should say. So that was his first career loss. It's not a bad loss to have. The guy's a good fighter. And then he takes on Uran here, who is 16-5, 27 years old, fighting out of France. Again, another guy who had a long win streak snapped by Mamedov, but it was a split decision, and he wasn't expected to be that competitive in that fight. But again, just the level of competition, look at his opponents, like really no one notable. Guys with some decent records for sure, but no one that's worth like talking about, I guess. I got to go with Radzhabov. He probably, again, wins a decision here, grinds it out, but it's hard to be 100% confident in both of these guys. Just they didn't look good in their PFL debuts. And the other thing I want to check on is, where's that other fight? The Daniel Pineda fight. Give me 1 second here. So yeah, I mean, overall, guys, it's an okay card. I think it's on TSN, so definitely check that out if you're in Canada. And obviously, it's on ESPN Plus, I should say, in the States. The fight between Rabadamov and Pineda was canceled because Rabadamov missed weight. So he was actually a big favorite. Pineda gets the walkover win here. Man, just again, it's embarrassing that these guys are missing weight. It's absolutely embarrassing. Don't get it at all. Just unreal. I mean, you get a chance to win $1 million and you come in heavy. Like, it's terrible, guys. It's just weird. Okay, anyways, let me talk about this a little bit. So there's an article of MMA Fighting I'm just reading right now. So first off, Ramsey Nijem was disqualified for not making weight. And he was removed from the fight with Schulte, of course. And Carlos Silva missed weight as well. Came in at 159 against Ronson. According to Daniel Rubenstein, who's a great guy, by the way, he said that Ronson was not given any other option but to fight Schulte or get paid, pulled from the card without being paid. He was not given the option to accept a walkover and earn 3 points, nor was he given the option to fight Silva and earn bonus points by finished. They said if he has to fight Schulte. So he had to fight Schulte, which is, to me, not really fair. And then the other fight is obviously Pineda and Radzhabov, which was canceled. So Pineda got the walkover win, got 3 points, but we'll see if he makes the playoffs. I think he kind of needs to rely on other people not exactly looking good in their fights. So PFL's format definitely is interesting. I don't like that when I'm reading about the Ronson thing. There might be something else going on. I mean, I think, we never know. You never know what's going on behind the scenes, but that definitely is not something you want to hear where a guy's being forced to fight when other people are getting walkover wins. That's not exactly fair. Anyways, overall, like I said, decent card, and we'll see what happens. Some of these PFL cards really surprise at times, and they have some good finishes, so we'll see what happens there. All right, fight announcements. I got a couple to talk about here. First up, Claudio Silva taking on Cole Williams at UFC Newark. Cole Williams is filling in for Ramzan Emeev. So let me take a look at these guys. Claudio Silva. I mean, this guy is one of the most underrated welterweights in the UFC. 13-1 record. He is 5-1 in the UFC. 4-1 actually. Sorry, I'm an idiot. 4-0. I don't know why I'm saying 4-1. He's lost once in his career. That's what I meant to say. He's lost once back in 2007. So he hasn't lost in 12 years, which is incredible. He beat Brad Scott, beat Leon Edwards, which was a great win, especially looking back. That was 5 years ago, though. He took a 4-year break, came back, beat Nordine Taleb, and then beat Danny Roberts earlier this year in one of the best fights of the year. The guy's a good fighter, man. I mean, he's definitely amazing on the ground. 36 years old, so he's older, but he's a beast on the ground. Cole Williams, 11-1, again, filling on short notice. He's 35, so he's an older guy. He's coming off of a nice win streak here. He's lost once in his career to Eric Wisely, actually 10 years ago. He's on a decent win streak, but look at the guys he's fought. This guy named Charlie Brown. I don't even know these guys. John Popey, John Kennedy. They had to find someone on 1 week's notice. They found this guy. Good for him, man. He grinded away for 10 years and got in the UFC. He will lose this fight. Give me Claudio Silva. I think Claudio Silva wins by submission in probably the first round. Next up, Louis Smolka against Ryan McDonald at UFC Fight Night Vancouver. That's on the 14th of September. That's going to be a fun card. Louis Smolka, 15-6 record. Since coming back to the UFC, he's 1-1. He beat Sue Medaji by submission and then lost to MacDonald by submission. So very inconsistent in UFC. We know about Louis Smolka and some of his troubles in his personal life, but as far as inside the cage goes, just a very inconsistent fighter. I love this guy though. Like seems like everything about him is he's just a great guy. But as a fighter, he's not a guy you want to back because he's just so inconsistent. It's hard to trust him. It's a Ryan McDonald here, 10-1 record. Lost to Chris Gutierrez in his UFC debut. Before that, had obviously won all of his fights. I think he's a good young prospect. He is Canadian. It's actually American. What am I talking about? I was thinking about Rory McDonald. Oh my God, it's so embarrassing. Anyways, yeah, sorry. Ryan McDonald, 10-1 record. He didn't look good against Gutierrez. That's a tough draw, though. That guy looked really good in that fight. It is what it is. I mean, this fight can go either way, in my opinion. Smolka does have the experience, but man, he's so inconsistent. McDonald didn't look good, though, in his debut. I think Smolka's probably going to be favored in this fight, guys, if I had to take a guess. But I think McDonald could be live, depending on what the line is. Also, at UFC Fight Night Vancouver, Kyle Prepolec takes on Austin Hubbard. Let me take a look at that fight. Kyle Prepolec, where is he? 12-6 record, Hubbard 10-3. Prepolec, he had a really tough debut against Nordine Taleb on short notice. Tough debut. He had gotten to the UFC after a win over Cody Pfister on the Canadian regional scene. Again, another guy I've watched fight for a long time. I'm just looking at his record. I remember seeing him fight at this fight. Jason Measle, 2012. I saw that fight. I was there. Score Fighting Series 5. Was that the Jordan Mean card? Bana Van Leaving. Josh Hill versus John the Haggis, Basher Fraser. Yeah, I remember that fight. Also, Rick Glenn against Tristan Johnson, Kyle Elias Theodoro, Jesse Ronson. I mean, there were so many future UFC fighters in that card. Wow, incredible. But yeah, man, that's how long I've been doing this for, guys. A long time. 2012 there. That was one of the Score Fighting Series events. I missed that. They did a great job with their events. Anyways, yeah, Prepolec, a little bit inconsistent. Didn't look good in his debut. Takes on Hubbard here, 10-3. He had a brutal draw in his debut against Davey Remos. I think that's just a tough matchup. But overall, I think he is the better fighter, and I think he probably does win this fight. So I definitely favor Hubbard to get the nod in this one. And one last one, Jose Quinonez against Carlos Hauchin. Let me take a look at these guys. Jose Quinonez. Pull them out here. El Petco, again, another guy with a tough draw in his last fight, 7-3 record, but he fought Nathaniel Wood. And before that, he actually won 4 straight fights. So 4-2 overall. His wins aren't great. And Teruto Ishihara's okay, I guess. Diego Rivas, decent, but just not a great fighter by any means. And then takes on Hauchin here, who had a loss to Rayoni Barcelos in his UFC debut. I was actually at that fight. It was in Brazil, and it was a brutal finish. I actually walked into the stadium as the guy was getting finished. We missed that first fight with Araujo. So, yeah, you got to go with Quinonez, I think, in this one. The Hauchin definitely, I don't know. He didn't look good in that fight. We'll see. Maybe I'm wrong about this one, but Quinonez definitely more experience. And Hauchin, he's only 23, so he can get better. But, we'll see what happens. You never know with the odds, guys. I'm just giving you my initial thoughts. These obviously can change by the time September runs around when the card happens. So that's about it for today's show, guys. Again, appreciate you sticking around with me today. As always, find me on Twitter at MMAOB. This podcast, of course, is always available at MMAOB.com and on our YouTube channel. Please like, share, and subscribe. Also, check me out at bjpan.com and MMARings.net. Guys, thanks again for tuning in. I'll be back tomorrow talking about what happened tonight at PFL and just breaking down the weekend's fights. Have a good one, guys, and I'll talk to you guys very shortly.